Hi, my name is Mariah. Welcome to my channel. This is a place where I talk about two of my favorite things, knitting and poetry. Today I have my tea, I have my art teacher shawl, we are so cozy, and today I want to talk about poetry. So before we get started, I just wanted to touch on a few general things about poetry, what kind of defines poetry for me, because I think that's super important when we're talking about something. We just want to know exactly what we're talking about here. And everybody's opinions are going to be different, but I just wanted to briefly overview kind of what I view as a poem. Like, what makes a poem a poem? First thing I want to talk about is that poetry is subjective. Not everyone is going to like the same kind of poetry. Some people like super dark and broody poetry. Some people really like flowery language and imagery and soft, beautiful, romantic poetry. And other people love a good, funny poem. It's just different. Everybody's different. Everybody's going to like different things. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. Absolutely not. They are all valid, and you can like whatever you like. I'm not going to stop you, and please don't let anybody else stop you. But the one thing about poetry is that not every poem is going to be all of those things. You know, we can't categorize poetry as like good poetry and bad poetry. It's art. Poetry is an art, just like any other. It isn't black and white, it just is. And the rest is up to your interpretation of it. Remember, just because you don't like it doesn't make it bad, and just because you like it does not make other people stupid for not liking it. The second thing I want to bring up, what also contributes to, in my mind, what a poem is, and you know, I might ruffle some feathers with this one, but it's that not everything that claims to be a poem actually is a poem. And that is just my opinion. Feel free to disagree with me. You can leave your opinions down below. But I think that in this world that we live in, where people can just post anything all the time, and this like overload of information that's out there, just not everything that says it's a poem actually is. I want to go into my reasoning as to why I think that. So in my opinion, this is what makes a true poem, is what I'll call it, because I don't really know what else to refer to it as, but like an actual poem. There are two things generally in my mind that I consider to be key essential things to making it a poem. So the first is that a poem will present a new way of looking at things, or bring a new connection, a new or different connection between things that was not previously there, or you might not have previously thought of. So it's like a new way of looking at things, or connecting things that have previously been unconnected, or that you would not typically connect. The most obvious version of this is a metaphor. This is clearly linking two things that might not have anything to do with each other, but they're related in some way, or there's a concept there, what have you. But it doesn't always have to be a metaphor. It could just be a very literal thing worded in a way that makes you connect things that you just normally wouldn't. And the second thing that I think makes a poem is that it will naturally or almost subconsciously have literary devices throughout the poem. These are things like alliteration, imagery, metaphors. There are so many things that a poem could possibly have. Virginia Woolf said it herself the best: read 1,000 books and your words will flow like a river. If you, as a poet or an author, if you are consuming lots of different kinds of content, then you will, like I said, almost subconsciously put these literary devices in your poems. It's just gonna happen. That's how you learn. That's how it works, I think. It's like learning the fundamentals of music before playing music, and if you learn the technical side of it, it will come out when you're playing music just inherently. That's just, you know, the basics. I played sports, that's another thing. If you learn the fundamentals of your sport, when you're playing a game, it will naturally come out. I think it's the same exact thing with poetry, with art, with anything that humans do. But going back to what I was saying before, not everything that claims to be a poem actually is one, and some have the potential to be great poems, but it's like someone handing you a basket of ingredients when you asked for a cupcake. That's not fair to your readers. As a poet, as an author, you shouldn't expect your readers to do all of the heavy lifting. You know, there's more to it than that, more substance. There's an art form, there's expectations from your readers, there's so much that goes into it that makes poetry and reading in general what it is, and I don't think that it makes a good poem. Like I said, it has the potential, but it's just not quite there yet. There's something missing. Alright, having said all of that, poetry is one of my favorite things. I have always loved it, but I never ever thought that I would write it. Don't know why. Every once in a while I'd like write something down, but I never thought of myself as a writer or a poet. But it wasn't until November of 2021, so like almost a year ago, when I really started writing poetry. And it was this crazy just thing where it just like clicked for me. It was a big dog. Apartment living. I didn't even set out to write poetry or to be a writer. That was not at all my goal in the beginning. I just had this situation that kept playing over and over in my head like a loop, just stuck in my head, and I just could not shake it. And I remember driving home one day, and it was the start of fall, the leaves were changing, and the air was cool, and I think there was a sunset happening, and I just was stuck in this memory of mine about this situation that I could not get over, and I remember being so frustrated that I could not enjoy the beauty of fall. I mean, one of my favorite times of year. I think we can all kind of agree that fall is one of the best seasons, but I wasn't even able to fully appreciate it because the situation was just eating me alive. And I just thought, maybe if I write it all down, I can get all of my thoughts out and it'll leave me alone finally, and I can stop obsessing over this and what I would have said or what I would have done. So I got home and I got my journal out that I never use, and I just started writing about every thought that I had, everything that was bugging me. Like I said, things that I wish I would have said, things I wish I would have done or would have happened, just all of it. I dumped it out, and 6 months later, I was still writing. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Just more and more situations would come up, or even made up ones. I started writing about current things that were happening, made up situations, scenarios, even things that I saw in other art forms like movies or TV shows, songs that would inspire me, and I just kept writing. And about 6 months later, I finally got really busy with my job and life, and I stopped writing as much, but no matter how much time I spend away from it, I always come back to it, and no matter how much I write, I will always write. I love it. It is one of my passions at this point. I can't imagine not writing. And it's so fun. It's such a creative outlet. It's such a stress reliever. It's been very helpful for me to process things or to fully feel what I'm going through and finally get a new perspective, or just release all of that emotion and then be content to move on, or whatever the situation calls for. But it's been so helpful for me. I do not sit down at my desk to put into verse something that is already clear in my mind. If it were clear in my mind, I should have no incentive or need to write about it. We do not write in order to be understood. We write in order to understand. Good old C.S. Lewis wrote that one. Or said, I'm not sure, but it's a quote from him. And that's why I started this channel. I wanted somewhere where I could talk about all of this stuff. So hopefully this will reach some like-minded people with, similar views about poetry and knitting, and maybe people who do both like me, but I'm excited to chat more about it with you. So let me know, what are your favorite poems? What do you consider a good poem or a true poem? What are your favorite types of poetry? Let me know, because I love talking about this and I have so many more videos planned. I also have some more knitting videos coming out soon. If you saw my first video, my last video, it was a knitting podcast where I share all of the things that I'm working on, and I will definitely have more poetry and knitting related content coming out soon. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you like and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!